Imagine that at exactly 2:55 p.m., you walk into a small, rectangular room. In it is a table with a man in a suit who doesn't know you, sitting at the other end. There's a laptop in front of him. He turns his computer towards you and asks that you take a seat and write out a short paragraph on how your day is going. With it, he says,
I'll tell you who you are.
It's been alright. I woke up, took a shower. You try to be as generic as you can, to leave as few hints as possible about the real you. Brushed my teeth, went to let's keep that part out. Ate some cereal. Once you finished, the man then takes your paragraph and reads it over. Very good, he says. There are no defining features. This morning's routine could have belonged to anyone. It's good to meet you, Tom. It's boring. It's nerdy. You use it to type that 3,000-word English essay you have due tomorrow, but that we both know you didn't start on. A Microsoft Word knows everything about you. And if you're a writer or student, well, it knows even more. Word relies on something called telemetry, which is the recording and collecting of information from an instrument. In this case, the information is what you type into the program, and the instrument is Word itself. But collecting sentences is one thing. Analyzing them is far, far more interesting. But how does it do this? Take the following sentence. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. There are a number of ways to type this while maintaining the core bits of information. The brown fox jumps quickly over the lazy dog. The swift fox bounds right over the sluggish dog. The fox jumps over the dog so lazy the brown fox jumps quickly over the hell over it. All of these sentences share the same details. A fox, a dog, quick, brown, lazy, jumping. But all of them say it in a different way. Each sentence has its own style to it, and the analysis of this style is called, appropriately, stylometry. Stylometry is the almost clairvoyant art of turning literature into science, and science into prophecy. In it, a computer program takes a collection of sentences. It then breaks those sentences down into words. Then, it tabulates the words, counting how often each word appears, the density of words in certain sentences, how unique those words are, how those words might be arranged and rearranged. All these characteristics are individual to the way you write, and with a large enough sample size, a researcher could single you out from 1,000 other writers and match you to something that you wrote. Think of it like a fingerprint. The more you write, the harder you press your finger down onto the lifting tape, and the better a print you leave behind. There's a saying circulated around IT communities: you are what you type. Grey Owl Audio is a YouTube channel for people who like literature and learning. It's my YouTube channel, and of all the videos I've made so far, each script runs roughly 1,200 to 1,900 words. Times that by about 10 scripts, and a stylometry program has a reservoir of anywhere from 12,000 to 19,000 words to work with, some arrangements of which will almost certainly be unique to me.
On the morning of November 18th in the year 1827, an abandoned farmstead some several miles from the city of San Francisco played host to a curious docked vessel. The vessel was unlike anything man had known in all his generations on the earth. A marvelous construction whose frame of galvanized steel was vested with a great oblong balloon.
That's a paragraph from a piece of my writing in The Wedding of the Sun and the Moon, and on full display are all my literary tricks. I tend to use end dashes in my writing, though very, very rarely in the first paragraphs. I favor double adjectives to describe objects, but I catch myself often so that I don't use this technique more than once in a single sentence. If a sentence is too long, I favor semicolons over periods, and this one was really interesting. At the start of my writing, I open with both passive voice and a complete absence of contractions like its and don't, to establish my authority as a speaker. I also use it is said a lot. Here are two more examples where I do just that. It is said that the winding alleys of East India suffer no shortage of books. Stained and poorly bound, they find themselves peddled by bearded gentlemen in blood-brown sherwanis, who spy with merchant eyes upon the passing tourists.
It is said that when Iria, the goddess of order, struck out the sights of the giant Orthus, the great black orb of its eye fell far into space, encircled by a pair of frozen tears. Long was the sphere, ere, as it is named in the common tongue, abandoned, but long too was it stalked from afar by some sinister thing. For beyond time and space there is always the abyss, that long uncrested night, from which life at the start of time once escaped. It watched air with hungering, and for longer than any can ever know perceived all the ways in which it would reclaim that errant world.
Passive, contractionless. It is said, "This is me. These are my literary tricks, and more than that, everything from my periods to my sentence flow can be used to tie me to my writing." That's how back in 2013, Robert Galbraith, a petty crime fiction novelist, was revealed to be none other than J.K. Rowling, and how the creator of Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto's real identity, was discovered by the NSA in that same year. Even going back a century, analysis of the peaks and troughs of words helped catch the criminal author of the poison pen letters. But there are lots of parts to a fingerprint, and stellometry is capable of analyzing a number of different qualities that both you and I might not think of immediately. The distance between words, calculated with various formulas, punctuation, its type, and its frequency. Are you a semicolon man? Ah, a man of culture, I see. Or are you one of those freaky period people? Lexical diversity, which is just a fancy way of asking how sophisticated is your vocabulary. And paired onto that, lexical density, or how difficult is it for someone to read your work. Sentence lengths. Are you usually full-sentenced? Fragmented? To be fair, stellometry is a broad academic field, and while some branches chew through the themes and language conventions involved in a writing sample, called computational stylistics, others look more at the sample's word usage and try to make connections there. This second approach looks much more boring on the outside, but that's what makes it so devious, because it's there, right in the middle of all the boring words, that you can tap into the subconscious mind of an author. Okay, so Dr. James Sullivan from University College Cork has a really fascinating take on how stellometry works. I'll link to the full lecture below, but here's a SparkNotes version. He starts by taking the first sentence from George Orwell's 1984. It was a bright, cold day in April, and the clocks were striking 13. Dr. Sullivan then suggests that you can split apart the sentence into significant words, interesting words like bright, cold day, April, clocks, and striking 13, and leftovers, boring words like it, was a, in, and the were. And both can be remarkably useful. Significant words, for instance, can still maintain the original idea of the sentence, even if they're left up by themselves. Bright cold day, April, clocks, striking 13, is still a description that works. Meanwhile, the in-between language that doesn't really provide any meaning but instead glues significant words together, so-called function words, serve a grammatical purpose, like how mortar holds bricks together, or how bones hold our bodies together. Dr. Sullivan takes these function words and describes how we can list them in a table. This table, along with every other one in writing, is governed by something called Zipf's law. Zipf's law states that, in a large sample of words, the frequency of any word is 1 over n, where n is the place of that word in a list of words ordered by frequency. What? You're probably thinking. To put it simply, in a list of 100 words, the most used word will have a frequency of 1 over 1, or 1, while the next used word will only be used 1 over 2 times as often, or half as often. The third most common word will be used a third of the amount, or 1 over 3, and so on and so on. What's important about this is that the most frequent words in a text are often boring function words, and we can cluster them so that a certain author who uses mostly are, were, and is can be told apart from one who uses wasn't, could, and were. This is both beautiful and terrifying, because while we could always manipulate our descriptions and vocabularies to hide from author-identifying programs, what do you replace is with? Function words, by their nature, are resistant to change. They're the essentials of writing, and so it becomes very hard to hide or rearrange or obscure them in a text. In the same way that a person's antibodies can hunt down a virus because of its genetic structure, telemetry programs like Microsoft Word can hunt us down, because we can't change the genetics of our writing. Are there solutions? Perhaps. Once there was a strange author by the name of James Joyce, known for works like Finnegan's Wake and Ulysses, which at times devolve into onomatopoeic ramblings.
Bababadel gara taka memimnar, ronacombrontin neuron tuan tuntuvar.
He's a particularly difficult author to mimic, and yet in the 1930s, another Irish author did just that. In a research article, O'Sullivan, 2018, measuring Joycean influences on Flann O'Brien, Sullivan and his team fed writing by both Joyce and O'Brien to a stylometric computer program.
I think it's a very good plan, frankly.
The expected outcome would be, of course, that the computer could tell the two works apart. But then, the unthinkable happened. O'Brien had copied Joyce's style with such effectiveness, even penetrating into the function words, that the program mistook him for the real deal. This shows that there are limitations to the technology, and at least for now, it's still possible for an author to conceal themselves from prying eyes. If you know enough styles, you can become a chameleon. If you're a strong enough writer, you can become invisible. So much so that even Microsoft Word can't watch you while you sleep.
Hi, I'm Cortana. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and while you're at it, enter your hobbies, eye color, and social security number in the comments below. Haha, just kidding. Or am I?